Hey guys, tonight we begin with something heavier than history itself literally. You're about to wake up in the ancient sands of Egypt, under the scorching sun, with dust in your lungs and a job so brutal, it makes modern construction look like a spa weekend. Forget the myths of golden tombs and divine destiny. The reality? You're about to break your back building a giant triangle for someone who won't even bother remembering your name. So dim the lights, maybe crack open a window for that dry desert breeze, and let's see why you absolutely wouldn't last a single day building a pyramid. You wake up to shouting. Not birdsong, not a gentle breeze, just shouting. And then the unmistakable sound of something massive and heavy slamming into the earth with a thud that shakes your bones. By the time your eyes adjust, you're already sprinting barefoot across sand and stone. That thud? A limestone block. Several tons of it. Someone didn't tie the hauling rope right. It snapped. The slab dropped. Two guys were standing too close. Now one is under it. The other's screaming. But it won't help. No one's coming to save him. He shouldn't have stood there. There's a word for moments like this on the site. Routine. The overseers barely look up. The man flattened under the rock is just one of hundreds. Maybe thousands. The construction schedule can't wait, not even for death. You know what happens next. The foreman will order the rock pulled off him, not for burial, but because it still needs to go on the ramp. That slab has a place in the wall, and dead bodies don't change blueprints. Your stomach turns, but you don't show it. No one shows it. You just keep hauling your ropes tighter and praying you're not holds. What's wild is that this isn't even punishment work. You're technically a state worker. You are even promised beer, and you're gonna need it. Let's be clear, you're not a slave. Not by the legal definition, anyway. But let's not pretend that means much. You've got no freedom, no say in where you live, what you eat, or when you drop. You were recruited from a farming village upstream and told this was national service. Your family might get grain. You might get praise from the priests. But none of that matters today. Not when the sun is already rising. The ropes are burning through your hands, and a man just got turned into a meat pancake 10 feet away. There's no memorial service. Just a mumbled prayer, a pat on the shoulder, and then it's back to work. The ramps aren't going to pull the stones up themselves. Speaking of ramps, there are rumors that one of them collapsed last week. Not from wear and tear, but from sabotage. Someone snapped after watching too many friends die, and he cut the supports. Or so they say. He vanished before anyone could ask. Some think he fled into the desert. Others think the guards helped him disappear. Nobody asks too many questions. Nobody wants to end up as the next accident knot. You wipe the sweat from your eyes. It's not even breakfast, and you've seen a death, nearly lost your own foot to a splintering sled, and now you're about to carry a rope that's going to dig a trench in your shoulder. And the worst part? This was considered a good shift. Because the real suffering hasn't even started yet. To understand how unbearable the rest of the day is, we've got to talk about what happens when the sun climbs higher. The sand heats up like a skillet, and you're still hauling blocks barefoot. You shuffle forward, toes sinking into sand hot enough to fry a lizard. There are no sandals, no coverings, no brakes. Just you and about 100 others, dragging ropes across a slope that's steep, slippery, and freshly watered to keep the dust down, not out of kindness, but because dust slows work. Wet mud at least lets the sled slide. Of course, it also makes it easier for you to fall flat on your face. And that's what happens. Not to you, this time, but to the man ahead of you. He slips hard. His chest smacks the side of the stone. He groans, curls over. You wait for someone to help him up. No one does. The rock doesn't stop moving. If he doesn't roll out of the way fast enough, it'll crush his ribs. He rolls. Barely. Another guy steps forward to take the rope from him. The work must go on. The sun is just climbing, but already it's a wall of white heat. There's no shade, not even from the pyramid itself, because the side you're working on faces straight into the morning blaze. You can feel the skin on your arms tightening, reddening. You cover your head with a filthy scrap of linen. Doesn't matter. It just traps the heat in. Your back aches, your hands sting. The ropes dig into your skin like angry vines. Every breath tastes like a mouthful of dry earth and donkey sweat. The wind kicks up and sends sand straight into your eyes. You squint through it, but it's like staring into a sandblaster. There's no such thing as goggles. You just blink and deal with it. And that's when the overseer starts yelling. He's not yelling at you specifically. He never needs to. His voice carries like thunder. And if that doesn't work, there's always the stick. You've seen him. Use it. He walks the line of workers, tapping legs with the staff. A soft thwack if you're lagging. A full force blow if you talk back. He doesn't speak your language, not fluently, but he doesn't have to. He only needs a few words. Move, pull, faster. You obey. And maybe for a second, you start to think. At least they feed us. Maybe there's breakfast soon. Maybe some bread. Some dates. Something you haven't eaten since the evening before. But breakfast isn't a break. It's a blur. You're handed a chunk of rough bread, the size of your palm, and a clay cup of beer. Not cold beer, not fresh beer. Not even beer you'd recognize as beer. This is liquid bread, fermented, gritty, sour, and warm. You drink it fast because you're thirsty, and there's not much of it. The bread tastes like old dust. You chew, you swallow, and you're already being waved back into the line. There's no sitting, no shade, no moment to wipe your mouth. You eat standing, with your hands still on the rope. You chew while walking. If you choke, don't stop. There's no water station. You're sweating buckets, but you don't stop to drink. There's no time for that. You feel your feet start to blister. The sand grinds between your toes like broken glass. Every step is agony. But you can't stop. You can't limp. Limping is weakness, and weakness gets you noticed. So you push forward. Eyes low, mouth shut. One step at a time. You pull. You sweat. You breathe dust. And somewhere behind you, someone retches. He probably tried to drink the Nile water again. Not smart. The smarter ones fill their jars and let it settle overnight. The vorns sink to the bottom. But sometimes you're just too thirsty to care. A shout. Another stone arrives. It's your team's job to get it halfway up the ramp before midday. Halfway. You can barely walk. But now you're expected to push this monster up an incline made of mud and desperation. Your arms burn. Your thighs shake. The rope nearly slips from your fingers. But you grit your teeth. You pull, because if you don't, the guy next to you will. And if he outperforms you, he gets your food ration tomorrow. There's a cruel math here. Strength equals survival. Weakness equals hunger. Think about running. Just once. You could dash into the desert, disappear into the dunes. But you die by sundown. No water. No shelter. No hope. And worse, if they catch you, you won't be whipped. You'll be gifted to the priests. And what they do to escapees? That's something we'll get to later. By midday, your reward for not collapsing is a meal that would insult even the hungriest rat. A crumbly hunk of barley bread barely leavened, mostly grit. A pinch of dried onions, shriveled and sticky. And another clay jug of warm, half-fermented beer, sloshing with bits of yeast and the occasional gnat corpse. The beer's thick enough to chew, and if you're lucky, it only smells like old socks. If you're really lucky, it won't give you gut rot. This is your pay, your sustenance. Your thanks for hauling thousands of pounds of stone in 110-degree heat. Most of it is gone in 3 bites. Then it's back to the ramp. You feel your energy dip immediately. The beer gives you a haze behind the eyes. The bread sits in your stomach like a rock. The onions burn on the way down, and you start to wonder if this meal is designed more to silence complaints than fuel labor. A few guys try to joke around, passing the time by betting how long it'll take for someone to vomit. One of them does. Right after choking down his 3rd beer jug, no one laughs. There's a moment, just a flicker, when you stare down at your crust and your cup and think, I'd give anything for a clean glass of water and a fig. But that's dreaming. Dreams don't exist out here. Some workers, usually the newer ones, try to sneak extra food. They hide crumbs in their tunics, stash half a jug of beer behind stones. If they're caught, that's a flogging. No trial, no excuses. Food is rationed by the scribes and priests. Theft is sacrilege. You're not stealing from the overseers, you're stealing from the gods. The beer's sourness coats your mouth. As you trudge back to the ramp, you feel bloated and hollow all at once. Your gut cramps, and for a second, you panic. Not because of the pain, but because if you have to squat, you'll lose your place in line. And your place means your ration. Tomorrow, no one wants to talk about the latrines. And for good reason. Imagine a pit, no privacy, no cover, no drainage. Just a stink so thick you can taste it, flies so loud they drown your thoughts, and a line of equally miserable workers trying to avoid eye contact. That's if you're lucky. If you're far from camp, you go in the sand, behind a rock. Hope the wind is in your favor. But back to work. The ramp isn't getting shorter, and the stones aren't getting lighter. The priest stops by again. He walks the ramp slowly, chanting a hymn to one of the sun gods. He tosses incense on a brazier. The smoke curls into the heat, making you gag, but you drop your eyes respectfully. If he notices you looking tired, he might declare you spiritually tainted. That's a fast track to getting reassigned to corpse duty. Corpse duty, in case you're wondering, is what happens when a worker dies mid-shift and someone has to carry the body to the side trench. No ceremony, no chance. Just dump and cover. You squint into the horizon, hoping for a cloud. There isn't one. Just an endless canvas of white-blue heat pressing down on your skull. Someone ahead of you stumbles, and you step around them like they're a pothole. It's not cruelty. It's just survival. And then you hear it. The creak of ropes, the grind of stone against ramp. Another block's coming. You feel your legs protest. Your hands tighten on the fraying rope. You brace. This is your life now. This is your rhythm. Pull, gasp, step, bleed, eat, repeat. And for a brief, disoriented moment, you think, wasn't this supposed to be an honor? That's what they told you in the village. That pyramid work was sacred. That you'd be remembered. In songs. That your labor would please the gods. But all you see now is heat, dust, pain, and beer thick enough to drown in. Still, you keep moving. Because if you don't, the guy behind you will step over your body without blinking. And the overseer will yell. And your name will be scratched off a ledger and never spoken again. So you keep pulling, because what's coming next will make this meal feel like a feast. The whip doesn't crack in the air as a warning. It cracks across someone's back, loud, sharp, final. You don't look. You never look. The man who screamed is behind you somewhere. Maybe he slipped. Maybe he dropped a rope. Maybe he said something the overseer didn't like. Doesn't matter. The sound is the same. Flesh and leather. Pain and power. The overseers don't wear armor. They don't need to. They carry staffs, whips, and stone-hard eyes that say, you're not a person. You're a pulley. You'd think being beaten in front of everyone would be humiliating. But the truly scary part? It isn't. Nobody reacts. Nobody flinches. Not even the guy who gets whipped. He just grits his teeth and gets back up, blood soaking through his linen tunic, rope already in hand again. This is normal. This is routine. And there's no such thing as appealing to a higher authority. There's no HR department to file complaints with. The only authority above the overseer is the priest, and the priest is worse. If the overseer thinks you're lazy, you get the whip. But if the priest thinks you're impure, that's a whole other level of pain. Spiritual punishment means ritual cleansing, which can include fasting, forced isolation, sleep deprivation, or being sent to work in the burning pits outside the camp. You've seen those pits. They're used to fire bricks and cremate carcasses. The heat there makes the main pyramid site feel like a breeze. Men come back from the pits with faces like dried figs, voices gone, eyes hollow. Some don't come back at all. And what gets you sent there? Whispering during prayer, dropping a food jar, failing to bow. That's it. But let's say you're perfect. You follow every rule. You bow, you chant, you sweat until your bones ache. Doesn't matter. The system is still built to break you. Because no matter how hard you try, you will eventually fail. Your muscles will cramp. Your foot will twist. Your vision will blur. And the second you slow down, the whip comes out. It's not just pain, it's control. A reminder that you are one body in a sea of identical bodies. Replaceable. Expendable. Forgotten. You notice something strange over the next few days. A quiet shift in how you carry yourself. You walk with your head down. You flinch at sudden movement. You start repeating prayers under your breath, not because you believe, but because if you're caught not praying, someone might think you're disloyal. Fear becomes your second language. And yet, the overseers don't hate you. They don't even know you. They barely register your face. You're just a piece of rope to them. A wheel that turns. If you break, they toss you out and grab another. What's worse, though? The workers who do try to get noticed. Some try to curry favor working faster, louder, praising the overseer, calling him Blessed One, or Great Guide. Sometimes it works. For a while. They might get an extra hunk of bread or the chance to work closer to the water source. But they're also watched more closely. The moment they slip up, they fall harder than the rest. Because when you rise above the crowd, even just a little, you become a target. And then there are the secret punishments. You don't see them happen, but you hear about them. Quiet conversations around the bread fire at night. A guy caught sneaking water. Another accused of looking at a priestess too long. They're not beaten publicly. They're summoned. Taken away for private correction. When they return, if they return, they're pale, limping, and silent. You never ask what happened. Eventually, your own luck runs out. One morning, your rope snaps. Not your fault, just old fibers giving way. But it happens during a pull. The stone jolts. The team behind you stumbles. Someone falls. Their face hits the sled. Blood everywhere. The overseer is there in seconds. You try to explain, your mouth dry, voice shaking, but he doesn't care. You didn't hold the rope tight enough. That's all he sees. The whip comes down. Once, twice, you lose count. Your back screams. Your legs give out. You don't cry. You don't beg. You just curl up and wait for it to stop. And when it does, you don't get carried to a healer. You don't get water. You get handed the rope again. Because pain is just part of the pyramid. And the real agony is how numb you become to it. But the monotony of hauling stone and surviving beatings is about to be broken. In the worst possible way. Because tomorrow, you'll be assigned to a task that even the veterans avoid. a job that doesn't involve stone, but something far worse. You've been reassigned. The scribes come by before dawn, reading names from a wax tablet. Yours is called out, and without a word, you're herded to a different ramp one that veers to the side of the main build. It's narrower, steeper, quieter, no chance. No hauling teams. Just a handful of men hunched over, dragging sleds up alone, their faces locked in a kind of dull, haunted rhythm. This is the ramp they don't show to visitors, the one for the odds and ends. Chipped stones, awkward fragments, misshapen blocks that don't fit the nice patterns. It's all the worst pieces heavy in the wrong places, brittle in the others. No teams here. Just you. Alone. Your first block is small, but it feels worse than the big ones. It's jagged. Hard to grip. Slips on the mud track every time you get momentum. You pull. You grunt. You fall. And you do it again. And again. And again. At one point, you sit down just for a breath. 2 heartbeats, maybe 3. Big mistake. A whip cracks behind you, but there's no shout this time. No words, just the sound like a punctuation mark. You scramble up, cursing under your breath. The overseer walks past, without looking at you. It's all part of the game. This is the punishment ramp. For people who talked back, slowed down, got on the wrong priest's bad side. The worst part? You don't know which thing you did. You spend all day dragging awkward stones that scrape your hands raw. By midday, you've torn open a blister on your palm. The skin flaps like papyrus. You try to hide it. The blood makes the rope slippery. No one cares. At some point, a man behind you drops his block. It tumbles sideways, cracks into the mud. Wall and splinters. The overseer doesn't even speak. He just signals to the guards. They pull the man aside. You don't see what happens next, but you hear it. And then you don't hear him again. You make it to the end of your shift with knees trembling, mouth dry, and a layer of grime stuck to your skin like second skin. The air tastes like dust and copper. When they hand you your meal ration, your hands are shaking too much to hold the cup steady. You spill it. Half the beer gone. No second cup. One of the older workers. He looks about 30, but his eyes say 50 leans over and mutters, "Don't let them see weakness." You nod. You don't answer. That night, your hands hurt too much to sleep. The straw in your bedding jabs into every bruise. You lie there, listening to the chorus of groans, coughs, and muttered prayers that fill the barracks. Someone wheezes in the corner. Someone else is scratching so hard you hear skin break. You want to cry, but tears would sting your cracked skin, and you're too dehydrated to waste the water anyway. Tomorrow, you'll be put back on regular stone duty. Maybe, if your back still works. But the monotony won't be your biggest threat. Not anymore. Because there's something else creeping into camp now. Something worse than whips and rotten bread. And it starts with the feet. It begins as a smell. Not the usual scent of sweat, beer, and open latrines. That's normal. This is sharper, rotting, like meat left too long in the sun. You first catch it near the water troughs, then near the sleeping quarters, then everywhere. And then the feet start swelling. It starts with one man young, strong, one of the better. Haulers. His foot balloons up overnight. The skin cracks. Pus leaks. He tries to hide it, wraps it in cloth. But by midday, he's limping so bad the overseer notices. The next day, he's gone. By the end of the week, 5 more are missing. At first, the priests claim it's spiritual, a punishment for impurity, a curse from the Nile. But you've seen enough to know it isn't divine. It's trench foot, or something like it. The constant wet ramps, the heat, the rotting sandals if you even have sandals, are breeding infections faster than anyone can keep track. Feet crack, swell, ooze. And the legs go. And the rest. And there are no doctors. What you have? Healers, priests trained to chant over wounds while smearing them with moldy honey, ash, or pig fat. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it just makes the smell worse. One guy swears he watched a healer cut open a blister and squeeze a beetle out. You hope he's joking. But judging by the color of your own ankle this morning, he probably isn't. You try to keep your feet dry. Hopeless. The mud is everywhere. The water is never clean. And the ramps must be watered constantly to keep the sleds moving. Every step becomes a gamble. Will the skin split today? Will you make it to evening meal? The guys with bad feet don't last long. If they're lucky, they get quietly moved to brick stacking. If they're not, they just stop showing up. No one asks where they went. The camp isn't big on explanations. You finally meet one of them in the back of the barracks. He's lying on a mat, eyes sunken, leg wrapped in rotting linen. You can smell him before you see him. Flies hover above his knee. The skin is black and shiny, like burnt leather. Someone says he was a foreman once. Now he can't move. They feed him bread and leave him there. Because the camp doesn't have hospitals. The camp has ditches. You don't know what happens when he dies. You don't want to. You stop taking breaks near the troughs. You start washing your feet in the then. Beer bucket. Someone yells at you, but you keep doing it. Better angry overseers than infected toes. But even as your skin splits and your body weakens, the work doesn't slow. If anything, it gets worse. Because now there are fewer of you. And the blocks keep coming. One worker tells you, if you lose a toe, don't tell anyone. They'll take your food away. You nod. You think you've lost feeling in your left heel. Not sure when. And as you limp toward the next rope, someone whispers. They're bringing in replacements soon. But they don't mean other workers. They mean something else. Something cold. Something ancient. Mummies. At first, you think it's a joke. Just a rumor started by some delirious worker drunk off his beer ration. Mummies? Here? Why would they bring corpses to a construction site? But then you see them, wrapped in old linens, hauled in carts lined with palm fronds. Dozens of them, stacked like firewood. Each one has that unmistakable waxy look, sunken faces, cracked skin, the stink of age and resin, and something you can't quite name. They're not here for burial. They're not being mourned. They're being used. The priests explain it like this. The pyramid must be spiritually seated with the dead. That way, the pharaoh's spirit won't be lonely in the afterlife. The dead serve as escorts, anchors, offerings. But the way they handle them? No reverence. No ritual, just bundles of preserved bodies hauled into the foundation pits like bags of grain. You're assigned to one of those pits the next morning. The sun hasn't risen yet, and you're already ankle-deep in sand and bones. The smell is unbearable. Not fresh death. These corpses are centuries old, but a clinging, oily rot that gets into your hair, your clothes, your soul. Your job is to help place them into side chambers deep beneath the ramp foundation. You're told not to speak their names, not to look at their faces. Just place, stack, seal. No one told you the mummies would still have eyes. Not real eyes glass, maybe, or resin, but it doesn't matter. You feel them staring as you lower each wrapped bundle into place. One slips, falls from your hands. The linen splits. You see teeth, skin, a gold amulet clutched in the shriveled fingers. You step back, heart racing. The priest says nothing, just nods for you to continue. You try not to breathe. By midday, your arms are covered in some kind of powder. Maybe old salt, maybe ash. It burns your cuts. You don't ask what it is. One of the workers whispers that if you disrespect the dead, they haunt you, that they follow you in your dreams. You laugh half-heartedly, but that night, you can't. Sleep. Every time you close your eyes, you see their faces. And it gets worse. The dead aren't staying put. 2 nights later, a worker wakes up screaming. He says he saw one of the mummies standing in the barracks doorway. Others say the same. They hear footsteps, see linen trailing across the sand. One man finds a gold ring on his mat, one he didn't take. The priests blame the workers. Say someone broke the rules, touched something sacred. But deep down, everyone knows this isn't about curses. It's about rot. It's about fear. It's about building a monument for a dead king on the backs and bones of the forgotten. You start to wonder if this whole job is just death wrapped in linen, a pyramid not of stone, but of corpses. The worst part? You're getting used to it. One morning, they hand you another mummy. You don't flinch. You carry it down the slope. You place it in the shadows. You seal the chamber. And you don't even blink when you hear something whisper behind you. Because now, the dead are the least of your problems. The living ones are far more dangerous. You've been around long enough now to see things most workers never talk about. The body breaks. The spirit dims. But what really eats you alive out here? The boredom. Not the kind you get from sitting still, but the kind that wraps around your brain when you're doing the same backbreaking thing for the 100th time, on the 100th day, with no end in sight. You pull a rope, you step, you pull again. No one speaks unless necessary. There's no laughter anymore, no humming, just the hiss of rope, the slap of sandals, and the occasional grunt of effort or pain. The work never changes, but the people do. You start noticing who's missing. That man with the sharp elbows who always pulled ahead, gone. That wiry teen who carried double loads to impress the overseer, vanished. No explanation, no ceremony. One day they're hauling stone next to you, the next nothing. Some whisper about hidden graves. Others say the bodies get dumped into unfinished chambers in the pyramid itself. That the pharaoh's tomb isn't a place of honor. It's a pit of forgotten workers, sealed under polished slabs. You don't ask. You don't want to know which stone you might be buried beneath. What's more unsettling is the ones who don't vanish, but go silent. They walk, they work, they breathe, but there's nothing left in their eyes. They've shut off something inside, like a flame snuffed out. They don't speak, don't blink much. They follow orders like ghosts still wearing flesh. You're not sure when it happens, but one morning you catch yourself joining them. You pull the rope. You step. You bleed. You don't think. You've stopped looking up at the pyramid. At first, you used to stare at it in awe. At its height, it's shimmering. Limestone casing in the early light. Now, it's just a reminder of how much farther you have to go. A monument to your exhaustion. Even the food becomes mechanical. You stop tasting it. You barely chew. The bread crumbles, the beer sloshes, and the onions burn, but it doesn't matter. It all blends into a dull haze. You're not eating to live. You're eating to keep moving. The body can take a lot. But the mind starts peeling away layer by layer. You catch yourself muttering things that don't make sense. Repeating words. Counting stones. Tapping rhythms into your palm just to remind yourself you're still here. Others find different outlets. Some begin carving tiny figures into the mud bricks. Not idols, just crude shapes. Human, mostly. A face. A pair of eyes. Some say they're carving family members to remember them. Others say it's to give the gods something else to look at. One guy carves a pyramid with himself at the top. We all laugh quietly. He smiles, but his eyes don't. 3 days later, he throws himself off the hauling ramp. The priests claim it was a spiritual transgression, that he offended the gods. They cleansed the site with smoke and prayer. But everyone knows the truth. He just couldn't take it anymore. And you're starting to understand why. Because when every day is the same torment, every stone the same weight, every sunrise the same cruel trick, you start to wonder, what's the point? Why keep going? Why build a tomb for a king who will never thank you? Why suffer so he can live? Forever? You look at your hands, calloused, cracked, caked with dry blood and dust. You wonder how many more stones they can hold. But just when your mind starts to drift too far down that dark path, something changes. A new group of workers arrives, and with them, something worse than disease, worse than ghosts, worse than boredom: competition. They come in the early morning fog, while most of you are still choking down your sour beer and trying to flex the stiffness from your legs. A fresh batch of workers, dozens of them, broad-shouldered, younger, louder, clean, even. Some still have meat on their bones. They arrive in carts and on foot, herded by guards with polished staffs, and a priest reciting blessings none of them seem to understand. You watch them unload, eyes half-lidded, half jealous. They have energy, jokes, someone even starts singing. And instantly, you hate them. Not because they're bad people, but because they remind you of yourself before this place turned you into a walking shadow. These new recruits haven't felt the whip yet, haven't learned the rhythm of dehydration, bone pain, and sunstroke. They still believe they'll go home someday. Poor fools. They get handed tools and split into teams. Some are sent to help with stone hauling. Others get sent to the ramps. A few get pulled aside likely for the brick kilns or corpse pits. You get assigned 2 of them. Both look barely 20. They follow your lead like puppies, wide-eyed and breathing too fast. You try to warn them about the rope, how it burns through your palms if you grip it wrong. But they laugh, like this is just some hard job that'll end in a few weeks. Within the first hour, one of them throws up. Too much beer. Not enough bread. Overseer doesn't care. Smacks him hard enough to drop him flat. The other kid flinches. You just keep pulling. They learn fast. The competition starts subtle. The new ones want to prove themselves, so they haul faster, shout louder, take heavier blocks. The scribes notice. They mark names. Rations are reassigned based on performance. If they work harder, they get more. Food, which means you get less. Suddenly, it's not just about survival. It's about outlasting the new blood. You start pushing harder. You lie about your blisters. You tie linen around your waist, tighter to keep from passing out. You're working against the guy next to you now, not with him. The old-timers see it too. The whole camp becomes sharper, meaner, fewer shared scraps, fewer whispered warnings. It's every body for itself now. And that's when the accidents start, not the usual ones. These are quieter. A wedge left loose under a block. A rope cut and retied too thin. A water jug kicked over by mistake. A new worker slips on a slick ramp, falls 10 feet, leg broken. Someone says it was sabotage. Nobody investigates. No one says anything. But the message is clear. If you can't keep up, you're a threat. And if you're a threat, you're better off gone. You try to stay out of it. Try not to look too long at the new guy struggling beside you. Try not to care when he collapses. Eyes glassy from heat. You know better than to help. Because the guards are watching. And they don't want compassion. They want efficiency. But one evening, as you stagger back to the barracks, a kid barely more than a teenager catches your arm. His hand is shaking. His lips cracked. "How long have you been here?" he asks, voice trembling. You think about it. You really think and realize you don't know. Could be weeks, could be months. Time died in the sand. You just tell him, long enough. Then you walk away before he asks another question. Because if he does, you might start remembering. And remembering? That's dangerous. Especially when you're about to be reassigned again. This time, not to a ramp, but to the water pits, where something even more maddening waits for you in the shallows. Water duty sounds like a blessing. You hear the word, and for a second, your cracked lips and raw throat imagine cold, clear liquid, relief, maybe even a moment in the shade. You're so wrong, it's almost funny. You're marched to the pits before sunrise. Not a well, not even close. These are Shadoof stations. Muddy, algae-choked pools just barely filled by one of the Nile's feeder canals. The air smells like a dead animal that's been marinating in fish guts and sun. The tool you're handed looks like something a child would build. A long wooden pole balanced on a frame, with a leather bag on one end and a rock counterweight on the other. This is the Shadoof. Your job is to swing it, scoop water, pour it into jars. Repeat, swing, dip, lift, dump, swing, dip, lift, dump, over and over and over. The first hour is fine if you ignore the mosquitoes. But after the first 100 dips, your shoulders scream, your palms burn, and your back feels like it's about to snap in half. Then comes the slime. The water is thick with green gunk. Frogs, worms, things that look like larvae. You're not filtering anything. You're not even avoiding it. You're just moving it from pit to jar to ramp, where it's poured to keep the stones sliding. And if you spill any, you get to refill it, twice, as punishment. The Shadoof doesn't care how tired you are. If you lose grip for 1 second, it swings around and smacks you across the face. You see it happen 3 times in one day. A guy's nose explodes. Another bites through his lip. A third takes it straight to the eye socket and doesn't come back from it. The priests come by occasionally and toss in little pouches of herbs or burnt offerings to cleanse the water. Doesn't help. The stench is enough to make you gag, and more than one man working water duty ends up puking by noon. You're not allowed to stop. Worse, this water is for the entire crew. If you don't keep up, they can't work. And if they can't work, they know who to blame. You start seeing your name on more scribes' tablets. Not in a good way. Eventually, someone figures out a shortcut: dig a trench between pits. Let gravity do the work. It's brilliant. It works for 3 days. Then someone trips into the trench and breaks his neck. The priest says it's a sign. They ban the trench. You go back to swinging. And then the crocodiles show up. Not huge ones, young ones. Small enough to hide in the reeds, but big enough to snap fingers off. One morning you dip the Shadoof, and it comes up thrashing something alive, twisting in the bag. You drop it so fast your shoulder cracks. The overseer laughs. The others don't. They've seen worse. A man once reached in with a jar and didn't pull his hand back, only a stump. The guards tried to spear them, but you know how this works. If you're bitten, it's your fault. If you die, you weren't spiritually clean. End of story. So you start checking the water first. Toss a rock. Listen for movement. Hope. Your days at the pit blur together. You swing until your skin peels. You drink from the very jars. You just scoop worms, be damned. You swat at flies, slap at your own legs, mutter curses under your breath. But eventually, someone asks for volunteers. A different job. Something better. And you, idiot that you are, step forward. Because anything must be better than this, right? Right? You're wrong. Because the next morning, you're handed a shovel, a torch, and a sack of dried fish. and marched into the quarry. The quarry doesn't look like much from the outside, just a gash in the earth with jagged rocks lining the entrance and 2 tired guards flanking the path. But the second you step in, the air changes. It's still hot, but dead. No breeze. No sound except for the clink of tools against stone and the faint moaning echo of someone deeper in the tunnel, probably cursing their luck. Your torch barely lights 5 feet ahead. The shadows shift around you like they're alive. Dust hangs in the air like fog, sticking to your lips, your eyes, your lungs. This is where the stones come from. The big ones, the ugly ones. The ones too rough to shape at the main site. And your job? Dig them out. You don't carve marble. You don't use chisels with precision. You swing a bronze pick at solid rock until the wall breaks and something usable tumbles out. Or until your back gives out trying. The first swing nearly rattles the torch from your hand. The vibration crawls up your arms, into your skull. You feel it in your teeth. The quarry is full of half-dug channels, jagged stumps, and broken tools, left behind by the last unlucky crew. You see blood stains on the rocks. You don't ask whose. There are no ramps here, no chanting teams, no priests. Just men coughing, spitting, and swearing. The light is worse the deeper you go. You're told to keep moving forward. There's a vein of limestone someone found last week, and it has to be cleared by the end of the month. One guy collapses from heat after the first hour. Another keeps swinging even after his hand starts bleeding. He doesn't notice until someone points it out. You meet the supervisor, a man with half an ear and a stick he taps against. The stone whenever he's annoyed. He doesn't talk much. Just points, grunts, and occasionally shoves. You notice something strange by the second day. The echo in the quarry isn't consistent. Sometimes you speak, and it bounces back. Other times, nothing. Like the walls swallowed it. Someone jokes the spirits of the mountain are tired of the noise. Another says there are deeper tunnels below this one abandoned shafts, long collapsed, full of bones. Workers who went in but didn't come out. You're not sure it's a joke. The dried fish you're given for lunch tastes like leather dipped in salt. It doesn't help your thirst. Nothing does. You drink from a shared skin of water, so cloudy you can't see the bottom. Someone says it came from the canal upstream. Someone else says they saw a dead ox float past there yesterday. No one cares. You drink anyway. By the third day, your hands are shaking even when you're not swinging. Your fingernails have gone gray. Your snot is black. Every breath feels like swallowing sandpaper, but you can't stop. If you stop, they replace you. And the replacements don't always ask questions. You find a strange carving on one wall deep grooves that don't match any chisel you've seen. Almost like claws. The guy next to you shrugs. Found bones down there once, he says, nodding toward a collapsed shaft. Too big to be human. Probably jackal. You don't answer. You just keep digging. Because after a week in the quarry, something worse is waiting for you. A day of rest. Which doesn't mean what you think it means. Rest day arrives with the same sun, the same dust, the same smell of sour beer and overcooked onions. But something's different. Number. Blocks to haul. No tools in your hand. No ropes biting into your shoulders. Instead, there's music. Not good music, just off-key flutes, and some guy pounding a drum made from a stretched animal's stomach. But it's enough to make people straighten up a little, maybe even smile. That's when it hits you. Today is a festival. Now, don't get the wrong idea. This isn't a day off. It's not hammocks and honey cakes. It's mandatory. You're expected to attend. Expected to dance. Expected to sing the praises of Pharaoh and the gods who smile on his golden afterlife pyramid, which would be fine if you weren't held together by sweat, sunburn, and sheer willpower. The beer ration is doubled. That sounds like a gift until you remember, this beer isn't brewed for taste. It's barely filtered, thick as soup, and warm enough to cook fish in. You choke it down anyway because it's calories. And because if you don't drink, you'll stand out. You never want to. Stand out. They line you up in rows, hundreds of sun-bleached, half-starved men with hollow eyes and bleeding feet, and tell you to dance. Just move. Doesn't matter how. Sway, jump, collapse, and stand again. The priests chant. Incense chokes the air. Someone waves feathers in your face. You're not celebrating. You're performing. For the gods. Or at least for the overseers watching. From the shade. Someone hands you a garland made of crushed papyrus and dried petals. You put it on. Someone pushes a drum into your hands. You tap it. You stumble. You laugh just once, involuntarily, and for a second, it almost feels like freedom. Until the vomiting starts. Someone drank too much. Collapses in the sand. Gets dragged away by guards. A few others follow. Not from the beer, but from the heat. From dancing too hard, too long, on empty stomachs and shattered joints. The priests don't stop the music. They just chant louder. You're told this joyful display pleases the sun god, that it blesses the work, that the pharaoh will rest easy knowing his tomb was built by men with grateful hearts. You grit your teeth and dance harder. Eventually, the sun drops low enough that the shadows stretch out across the sand like fingers. That's when the games begin. They hand out sticks, not whips this time, thin reeds. You're told to beat the drum faster. The men who impress. The priests will get extra food, maybe even honey. Those who lag, they get reminded. You see one of the new guys collapse. Can't move. Face down in the sand, arms twitching. He's not faking. He's done. Heat stroke, maybe. Or maybe just his spirit finally broke. The priest walks over, bends down, smiles, then smears mud across the man's forehead and calls it a blessing. They leave him there. You keep dancing, because now you understand what rest day really is. It's a test, not of your strength, not of your devotion, but of your willingness to pretend, to smile while your insides scream, to lift your arms while your joints grind like old rope, to cheer for gods who forgot your name long ago. Eventually, the sun disappears. The priests declare the ceremony a success. The overseers nod. The guards relax. And you, broken and staggering, are allowed to collapse into the dirt. The celebration is over. Tomorrow, it's back to the stones. And this time, they're going higher, because you're about to be sent to the top tier of the pyramid, where the air is thin, the footing worse, and one wrong step means a fall that no one survives. Climbing the pyramid sounds noble, like a promotion, like you've proven yourself. In reality, it's a death sentence with a better view. The higher you go, the smaller the margin for error. At ground level, dropping a stone might bruise your foot. Up here, one misstep and you're skidding off the edge, screaming all the way down. No one survives the fall. No one even tries to rescue you. It's too far, too steep, too dangerous. You're handed a new rope and told to start climbing. The ramp system that wraps the pyramid like a coiling serpent is narrow and cracked, patched together with more mud than stone. You walk sideways to keep your balance, hugging the outer wall as the wind tries to peel you off. There's no handrail, no safety net, just your own stubborn grip and knees that feel like they've been replaced with hot sandbags. The blocks here are smaller but trickier. They're casing stone's finishing pieces. Polished white limestone, cut to fit perfectly, gleaming under the sun. They're precious. That means if you damage one, you might not get another chance to mess up. The sun up here is blinding. There's nothing to shade you. The stone reflects the light like a mirror, bouncing the heat back into your face. You sweat so much you feel hollow. Your lips crack open. You taste salt and blood. The wind is worse. Down below, it's still and hot. Up here, it screams. It howls through the unfinished corners of the pyramid like an angry spirit. It dries your sweat before it cools you. It stings your eyes with airborne sand. One gust, and the load you're carrying could tip, dragging you with it. You anchor yourself to the stone with the rope, looped around your waist. Doesn't help much. It just means if you fall, you might dangle before slamming into something on the way down. That's if the rope doesn't snap. You ask the guy next to you how many have fallen this season. He doesn't answer, just stares ahead and keeps walking. You understand why. It's easier not to know. Just move forward. Just stay upright. Just don't think about the edge 3 feet to your left and a 200-foot drop straight down. Then there are the tasks. You're not just moving stone up here. You're aligning it, placing it, fitting it like a puzzle, where each mistake costs a life. The casing stones are so precise they have to slide into place with barely a finger's width between them. Mess up the angle? It'll ruin the whole tier. Overshoot the placement? You might chip the edge, and then the priest calls for another cleansing and another backbreaking replacement haul. You watch as one man struggles with his block. He panics, tries to adjust it. The corner cracks. The priest, overseeing the tier, says nothing. 2 guards walk over and simply escort the man off the ramp. You never see him again. And yet, the work doesn't stop. The pyramid waits for no one. You haul. You lift. You sweat. You bleed. And all the while, the edge whispers. Your name. A single slip. A distracted blink. A cramp in the wrong muscle. You imagine falling. And part of you wonders if it'd be a mercy. But you don't fall. Not today. You finish the last block of the shift. Rope burned into your palms. Calves trembling like they're about to snap. You kneel. You pant. You stare out at the desert. From up here, you can see forever. But you still can't see a way out. And while you're up here, breathing in the dust of a dead god's dream, something else is happening below. The foundation bits are moving again, which means you're about to learn where the bodies really go. They tell you it's just maintenance. That the base of the pyramid needs reinforcing. That the sand shifted, or the gods demanded deeper offerings, or some other priest-approved excuse. But you've seen enough to know. When the foundation pits open, something's being hidden. They choose a small team. You're on it, not because you're strong, but because you're quiet. You don't ask questions. You finish your work. You're exactly the kind of person they want for this. They take you at dusk, when the light is soft and the winds pick up. You're handed torches, short picks, and a jug of beer that smells even worse than usual. One of the guards tells you, don't talk, don't ask, don't stop. You descend into the pit. It's not natural. A trench carved deep into the bedrock, reinforced with stacked stone. The bottom is cool and still, the silence pressing in like a second skin. You can't see the sky anymore. Just dirt walls rising around you like a tomb. And at the center of it, all wrapped bundles. Bodies. You freeze. These aren't fresh. Not like the ones you saw delivered weeks ago. These are skeletal. Dried. Some barely wrapped. Others not at all. Limbs curled inward like dead spiders. No jewelry, no markings. Just silent, anonymous remains stuffed in tight rows, like they were stored, not buried. You hear someone gag behind you. The priest in charge doesn't blink. He points. Move them. That's your job tonight. Not digging. Not hauling. Relocating to where? No one tells you. You just follow orders. You grab a bundle. It's light. Too light. Feels like paper wrapped around sticks. The linen cracks in your hands. You think you feel hair. You try not to breathe. You carry it to the side trench, where others are lowering them into a newer chamber freshly dug, still damp with Nile. Seepage. You place the body gently. You tell yourself it's an act of respect. But really, you're trying to keep from losing your mind. Some of the bodies are small. Too small. Children? No one says anything. One of the workers whispers, "Why? Not just burn them?" The priest hears, walks over, doesn't yell. Just says, "The pharaoh needs witnesses." That shuts everyone up. You work through the night. By morning, your arms are shaking, your mouth dry, and your skin crawling with something deeper than grime. You want to scream. Instead, you drink the rest of your beer ration, now warm and bitter, and wait for someone to dismiss you. The priest smiles, says the work is done, for now. You climb out of the pit, blinking into the harsh morning light. Everything looks normal. Blocks being hauled, ropes pulled, flutes whining in the distance. Like nothing happened, but you know better now. The pyramid isn't just a tomb. It's a layered graveyard. A monument built on centuries of death, sealed with prayers no one believes anymore. Every level hides more than stone, more than offerings. It hides people. And one day, it might hide you too. But before that happens, you'll be tested again. Not by stone, but by judgment. Because your name just appeared on the priest's list. And judgment always demands a sacrifice. It starts with the scribe's tablet, a fresh slab of wet clay, names etched with the end of a reed. Every morning it's updated. Who's pulling blocks? Who's on water duty? Who's being sent to the quarry? Who didn't wake up? But today, your name is on a different list. A short one. The priest doesn't read it aloud. He just lifts his hand, points to 5 men, you're one of them, and says, "Judgment." That's all. You're herded to a tent near the base of the pyramid. A structure you've never seen used. It's quiet inside, muffled. The air is thick with incense, the kind that coats your throat like hot wax. A single bowl of glowing coals crackles in the corner. You kneel, not because you want to, but because you have to. A priest in gold threaded linen walks the line, face painted, staff in hand. His eyes scan each of you, like your livestock. Not men, resources, problems. He stops in front of the man beside you, young, twitchy, newer. The priest asks, "Have you spoken against the pharaoh?" The man shakes his head, stutters a no. The priest nods. "Then why do your arms carry so little stone?" He doesn't wait for an answer, just marks the tablet again. The next man is asked if he's touched offerings meant for the gods. Another is accused of impure thoughts during prayer. The questions don't need to make sense. They aren't for finding truth. They're for finding fault. When the priest gets to you, he asks, "Why have you been silent during the morning chant?" You blink. Think back. You don't know. Maybe your throat was raw. Maybe you were too tired. Maybe you were silent. You answer, "I didn't realize." Wrong answer. He nods again, marks the tablet. 3 out of 5 marked. No one speaks. The priest leaves the tent. The guards motion for you to rise. You do. Your knees creak. Your stomach turns. You want to shout that this isn't fair, but what would that change? Outside, the other workers look away. No one meets your eyes, because they know what judgment means. It's not always death. Sometimes it's worse. You're led to a pen behind the barracks, a wooden enclosure with no roof. Inside are men who failed the last round of judgment. You recognize some. Others are too far gone. One man is missing. An ear. Another just rocks back and forth, muttering to himself. You're given a cup of water. Not beer, water, almost a kindness. Then the guards leave. You're told nothing. Not when you'll leave. Not if you'll return to work. Not what comes next. You wait. 1 day, 2, no food, only water. You lie in the dirt. Listen to the screams of men still working the ramps. Watch buzzards circle the quarry. Pick at a rash spreading across your ribs. Eventually, a priest returns. Not the same one. This one's older. Smiles a lot. Too much. He offers you a choice. Return to work under closer observation or volunteer for a cleansing. You don't know what that means. No one does. But the man with the missing ear once volunteered. You never saw him again, so you return to work. And when you do, it's not the same. You're watched, always. The guards follow you with their eyes. The priests listen more closely when you chant. Your tools are checked. Your meals are halved. One wrong move, and you'll be cleansed next. Still, something in you hardens. Because now you know the rules. They're not about fairness. They're about fear. And what's coming next will push that fear even further. Because someone has just found a secret passage inside the pyramid, and they want you to help seal it. They call it the breath hole, a narrow slit in the limestone, hidden behind one of the half-laid casing stones near the southern face. It's not part of the design. Not on any blueprint the scribes carry. But it's there, plain as day. Someone tripped over it hauling a tool cart, and now the priests are very interested. Which is why you're here. They want it sealed. Quietly. No announcement. No crowd. That alone tells you something's wrong. The hole isn't large. Barely big enough to slip your arm into. But the air that comes out? It's cold. Damp. Smells like old tomb dust and copper. And underneath it a faint sweetness, like rot wrapped in perfume. The priest waves incense over the opening and mutters a prayer. Then he turns to you. You will go in. You blink. Me? He nods once. You are already marked. Right, the judgment list. You tie a linen strip around your mouth, light a fresh torch, and crawl in. The hole widens quickly. Within 5 feet, you're in a tunnel. Narrow, but tall enough to crouch. The walls are unfinished raw limestone, not carved smooth like the rest of the pyramid. You realize this isn't part of the official build. This was dug in secret. The air is stale, heavy, and the deeper you go, the more you smell that sweetness. It clings to the stone, to your skin. Your torch flickers. You hear something. A thud. Then another. Not loud. Rhythmic. Footsteps? No. Heartbeat. Your own. You keep going. Eventually, the passage opens into a chamber. Small, low ceiling, but unmistakably intentional. The walls are covered in faded red pigment. Not hieroglyphs. Just smears, lines, symbols that don't match anything you've seen. In the center, something lies wrapped in linen. Another mummy. No, not a mummy. A person. Fresh. The skin is still soft. The face young. Eyes open. Lips parted. You stumble. Back. Your torchlight flickers across something carved on the floor. A symbol and eye, wreathed in flame, staring upward. It's not part of the Book of the Dead. Not a god you recognize. Not any god. You don't scream. But you do crawl backward as fast as your limbs allow. The torch drops. The flame snuffs. You claw your way out through the dark, fingernails ripping on the stone, lungs filling with dust, and whatever else lingers. Down there, you burst into daylight gasping. The priest waits. You tell him what you saw. He doesn't blink. He simply says, then it must be sealed. You're given mortar, stone, orders. You and 2 others spend the entire afternoon blocking the tunnel, filling it, erasing it. When it's done, The priest places his palm on the final stone, mutters something you don't understand, and walks away. No record is kept, no tablet marked. The overseer tells you to return to work like nothing happened. But something has changed, because now you know there are secrets beneath the pyramid even the priests fear. And if those secrets ever get out, well, they'll need someone to blame. And your name's already been marked once. You go back to the ramps, but the rope feels heavier now. The sun harsher, the dust thicker. Because once you've crawled inside the guts of the pyramid and seen what's rotting beneath it, you don't come back the same. The others notice. Not what you saw, because you don't tell them, but how you move. Slower, quieter, like you're listening for something no one else can hear. They think it's injury, fatigue, maybe madness. They're not wrong. But it's not just what's inside the pyramid that starts getting to you. It's what's missing. You stop seeing familiar faces. Whole teams are replaced. Not gradually, suddenly. Gone overnight. No explanation. The barracks empty out one row at a time. You ask a scribe where they've gone. He looks up from his tablet and says, "Which team?" You name them. He squints. They were reassigned to the mountain quarry. You've never heard of that. And neither has anyone else. Someone else, a veteran with sand-burnt cheeks and an eye clouded over from too many sunrises, pulls you aside later. Says there is no mountain quarry. Says when workers start seeing things, he doesn't say what, they get transferred. Transferred where? He shrugs. Into the walls, maybe. It's not a joke. You've heard stories of men buried alive. Ritual sealings. Sacrifices. Not often. Not public. But it happens. Quietly. Usually after someone finds something they shouldn't. You tie your rope a little tighter. Keep your head down. But even then, strange things start happening. One morning, your team finds a block sitting at the top of the ramp that no one remembers placing. Perfectly cut. Impossibly placed. As if it appeared overnight. The priests say it's a blessing. You don't believe them. That same day, a section of ramp collapses without warning. 3 men crushed. Not by the block. By the supports giving out underneath. No one takes responsibility. The priests perform. A ritual. Burn incense. Smear wine on the stones. Then they replace the workers and keep going. You start to dream. Not of home. Not of escape. But of stone. Endless stone. Block after block, each one stacked by hands that aren't yours. Under. A sky that isn't real. You wake up gasping, hands gripping the air like you're still holding a rope. One night, you dream of the sealed tunnel again. Except this time, it's open. And the thing inside is standing up. You don't sleep the next night. You barely eat. You just keep working. Because at least in the rhythm of the rope, the crush of the sun, and the wheeze of your own breath, you can pretend everything is still normal. But then you see it. A cart, headed toward the base of the pyramid, not carrying tools, not carrying stone, but carrying bodies, wrapped, lined up, stacked, more than you've ever seen at once. You count them, 27, and they're not mummies. They're fresh. Someone whispers that it's containment. You don't ask. Because if you say the wrong word or ask the wrong question, you'll end up in that cart too. And what's worse than being buried alive in a monument for a king? Being buried with the truth. You're sent back to the quarry, not the deep pit from before, but a newer cut, smaller, exposed, closer to the river. You'll like this one, the overseer says with a strange little grin. It's peaceful. That's the first lie. The second is that you'll be working with sacred animals. You assume it means hauling oxen or donkey teams. Maybe a falcon tied to the priest's arm for blessings, something symbolic. But no, they mean crocodiles. Specifically, the ones that live in the channel just behind the stone-cutting zone. Sacred, the priests say, embodiments of Sobek, the Nile god, to be respected, fed, left alone. Only now they're not staying in the water. It starts with a low growl from the riverbank. You don't even know crocodiles growl, not really not, until you hear it. Then a splash, then someone screaming. A man wasn't working alone. He was just the slowest to move. By the time you reach the edge, it's already dragging him under. You catch one final glimpse of his hand fingers splayed wide, skin torn, and then nothing. Just ripples. Then stillness. The overseer doesn't blink. Back to work. You're told to ignore the water from now on. Keep your eyes down. Don't bathe. Don't drink near the edge. If you see one basking nearby, don't chase it off. It's divine. But you still have to work beside it. You ask why they don't move the quarry. The priest answers like it's obvious. We do not disturb the sacred. We coexist. You bite your tongue. Because what you want to say is that you've seen more men disappear from coexisting with the sacred than you've seen die from. Falling stones. You try to laugh about it later. Call them the Pharaoh's pets. The joke doesn't land. There are more incidents. Always at the waterline. A worker washing his arms gets pulled in by the ankle. Another stumbles over a nest, yes. A nest buried near the stone heap. The mother crocodile doesn't like that. You don't see that worker again either. Eventually, the teen just stops going near the river. You dig deeper into the rock shelf, working by torchlight to avoid the banks. The guards don't care. They're not on the casualty list. You are. Then, one day, the priests decide the crocodiles need offerings. Not symbolic ones. Real ones. They bring animals at first. Goats, chickens, tossed alive into the shallows. The water froths. The crocodiles grow bolder. Someone whispers, "What happens when they run out of goats?" You don't say it aloud, but you know. You've seen too many carts, too many bodies. Too much silence from the guards when someone disappears near the sacred pool. One night, you wake to chanting. Low, rhythmic, hypnotic. You sneak from your barracks to see the priests walking toward the channel. Behind them, two men, bound. You recognize one? He was caught stealing rations last week. You don't watch what happens. You just go back to bed and pretend not to. Hear the splashing, because you're still marked, still watched, and if they even think you're questioning the gods, you'll be next. They call it the Overseer's Gift, a new ramp, built higher than the rest, steeper, narrower, and lined with polished stone so bright it reflects the sun directly into your eyes. It was ordered personally by the High Overseer, a man no one's seen in weeks. Word is, he wants this final corner done before the next full moon. That gives you 4 days. You're selected again. Not for your strength, not for your skill, because you're still breathing, and because no one else will volunteer for the gift ramp. From the moment you step onto it, something feels wrong. The stone shifts under your sandals. Not loose but greasy. You check the ramp's surface. It's not dust. It's not water. It's oil, smeared in long, uneven streaks from top to bottom. You're told it's for easing the haul, that the sleds move smoother this way. But all it does is turn every step into a gamble. Your soles slide. Your weight shifts dangerously with every motion. And now they've cut down the team. Sizes, fewer workers, heavier stones. Efficiency, they say. You say nothing. Because the only thing worse than slipping is being labeled difficult. You focus, breathe, grip the rope. Then a shout behind you. Someone's gone down. A man loses his footing near the top. His legs go out from under him. The stone he's hauling swings forward like a wrecking ball. It slams into another sled. The entire line collapses in a chain reaction. You throw yourself flat just as a slab the size of a wagon screeches past your shoulder. When it stops, the silence is worse than the chaos. 2 men are motionless. One is coughing up red. The other isn't moving at all. The ramp is cleared, but not for rescue, for cleanup. The bodies are hauled off, not down the ramp, but over the side. Dumped. The priest doesn't even come out. A junior scribe reads a verse, barely audible. Then work resumes. You're handed a new sled, and this time you're put in front. Lead rope, closest to the drop. You want to scream, refuse, beg, but your mouth opens and nothing comes out, because this ramp, it's the overseer's favorite, his pet project. Anyone who slows it down is assumed unfaithful. The sun moves slowly across the sky. Shadows stretch across the polished incline. Your feet slip every 5th step. The rope burns into your palms. You think about letting go, just once, just to see what would happen. But you don't. You pull. And when you reach the top, breathless and shaking, you realize something. There's no room left. The ramp leads to a tier already finished. There's no place for the stone. The scribes argue. The foreman panics. The workers wait. Then anew. Command comes down. Tear it down. The whole day, the whole climb, the blood, the falls, all of it was for nothing. They got the order wrong. And you, the rope leader? You'll be blamed. Unless you move fast. Unless you volunteer again. Which is exactly what you do. Because there's only one task, worse than the ramp. And they're about to assign it. Tomb detail. Tomb detail is whispered about in the same way children whisper about monsters under their sleeping mats quietly, with wide eyes and always from a distance. It's the job everyone avoids. Not because it's the hardest work, but because it's the final work. If you're assigned to the tomb crew, it usually means one of 3 things. You're good at following orders. You've seen too much. Or the priests don't plan on needing you afterward. You get the summons after sundown. No announcement. Just a nod from a scribe and a flick of the wrist toward the pyramid's eastern face. There, a narrow crevice leads to a scaffold covered. Shaft freshly cleared, newly reinforced, and swarming with priests. They hand you a bundle of linen and a jar of oil. You'll anoint the threshold, one of them says, but do not cross it. You nod, but they still make you swear. On the Nile, on your blood, on your bones. You do. Of course you do. You follow the others into the shaft. It's colder than you expected. The temperature drops instantly, the air growing heavy with incense and thyme. The stone walls close in. You feel like you're walking into the throat of some massive beast. Inside, it's silent. Not quiet silent. No sound but your footsteps. Even the torch fire seems hushed, like it's burning behind a curtain. The tomb itself is only partially finished. Gold leaf not yet applied. Paint still drying. The workers here are different, older, slower, always glancing over their shoulders. They don't speak. Their eyes say everything. You're given a chisel, told to smooth the threshold. For the soul's passage, they explain. But as you scrape the stone, you notice something strange. Fingers, small ones, pressed into the drying plaster long before your arrival. Child-sized. Dozens of them, fanned out like spider legs. Not playful, panicked. Someone else sees it too. He leans in. Do you see? He doesn't finish. A priest appears behind him and places a firm hand on his shoulder. The man is escorted out. You never see him again. You keep working. The tomb walls are covered in hieroglyphs, but not the usual prayers and praises. These are warnings. Eyes. Crossed out. Gods drawn upside down. Names deliberately chiseled away. You ask a scribe what they mean. He says, "They are from an older script." You ask, "Older than the gods?" He doesn't answer. You're given one more job, sealing. The vents. Every royal tomb has air shafts meant to carry the spirit skyward, the priests say. But this tomb? You're sealing them shut, with mud, with plaster, with curses whispered over each one. Why trap a spirit meant to rise? No one says it, but you already know. They're not keeping something out. They're keeping something in. As you prepare to leave, you notice something else. There are 5 of you who came in. Only 4 walk out. You want to ask. You really do. But you don't. Because the deeper you get into this place, the more you realize. Asking questions is the fastest way to become part of the foundation. And the tomb isn't finished yet. But before they seal it for good, there's one last ritual. One that requires living participants. And your name just got called again. You thought you'd already seen every ritual the priests had in their book. The chants, the dances, the incense that smells like burning feet. But nothing prepares you for this. They call it the final light. It's performed only once at the knee. Completion of a royal tomb. The priests say it's a sacred merging of breath, flesh, and stone meant to bind the spirit of the pharaoh to the pyramid itself. Sounds poetic, until you realize what that means for you. You and 9 others are chosen. Witnesses, they say. But you're not watching anything. You're part of it. You're stripped. Not naked, but close, just a waist wrap and a string of scarabs around your neck. Each one has a name carved into it. You pray it's not yours. The ceremony begins at dawn. You're led down the passage into the sealed tomb chamber, now lined with gold, obsidian, and perfumed smoke, so thick it turns the torchlight orange. At the center lies the sarcophagus, massive and sealed with resin and pitch. Around it, jars of organs, bowls of dried food, and one thing no one ever told you about. A living dog, freshly drugged, breathing slow, bound at the feet of the sarcophagus. A priest raises a bronze blade. The dog doesn't make a sound. Neither do you. After the offering, you're told to kneel. Your hands are placed on the stone lid, cold, smooth, impossibly heavy. You're ordered to chant, not words you know, but syllables that feel wrong in your mouth. Harsh consonants, repeating echoes. You feel dizzy, not from the heat, not from hunger, from something else. A vibration, like the pyramid is humming beneath your knees. One of the witnesses faints. The priests don't help him. They keep chanting. And then the torchlight shifts. Not dims, not flickers. Shifts, as if the flames lean away from the sarcophagus all. At once, someone behind you starts to sob. You don't look. The priest's voice rises. One last verse. One last word that makes your teeth hurt. Then silence. Utter, consuming silence. And in that moment brief as a breath, you feel the stone lid push back against your hand. Only for a second. But it was there. The priest opens his eyes and declares the pharaoh's soul sealed. The ritual is complete. You're pulled up, dizzy, ears ringing, led out without a word. But as you stumble through the tunnel, you realize something terrifying. Not all of you are leaving. 3 witnesses are missing. No questions, no names, no explanations. Their scarab necklaces are left behind, hanging on a hook near the tomb door. You don't sleep that night. You can't, because what you touched, what you felt, wasn't death. It was waiting. And the priests? They know it's still alive. They keep you close after the ritual, not as a reward, as insurance. You're sent back to ordinary labor, but everything feels different now. Your team changes. Your meals shrink. The guards watch more closely. The priests never speak to you directly anymore. They just glance, as if checking whether you're still holding together. You are. Barely. The nightmares return, this time sharper, more vivid. You dream of the sarcophagus cracking open, not with a bang, but a slow hiss. Something slithers out. Not a creature, not a person, just a shape, a shadow. It moves like smoke, but it has weight. When you wake up, you check your hands. Expect to see burn marks. They're clean, but something hurts anyway. On your next shift, the stone you're assigned to feels wrong. Not heavy, warm. You ask if anyone else notices. No one does. You haul it anyway. Halfway up the ramp, your nose starts bleeding, a small thing. The overseer sees and waves you off. Dry air, he says, but you know better. The days blur. The sun scorches. But you can't stop thinking about that moment. The push from the sarcophagus lid. The feeling that something inside that box wasn't sleeping. Then something new happens. A body is found at the foot of the pyramid. Curled, unmarked. No wounds. No blood. Just empty. The scribes say it was heat exhaustion. But you saw him the night before. He was fine. Joking, even. He had extra beer. He's buried without ceremony. And then another. And another. Always in the morning. Always untouched. The whispers start again. Pharaoh's taking them, someone mutters. Feeding early. You tell them to shut up. Not because you disagree, but because if the priests hear them talking like that, they'll vanish before sundown. Still, the fear spreads. People stop sleeping near the base of the pyramid. They lie farther out now, closer to the quarry. The barracks go half empty. You notice fewer guards, more scribes, and strange tools, copper wands, obsidian rods being carried in and out of the tomb. At night, someone's trying to talk to what's inside. You hear it chanting again, not like the ritual, lower, creepier, less formal. Not prayers, conversations. And one night, you sneak close enough to hear something else. A voice, but it isn't. The priest. It's deep, slow, crawling through the cracks in the stone. You freeze. You know if you're caught, you'll be silenced. But you can't move, can't breathe. The voice says something, just one word. You don't know what it means, but your blood turns to ice. You run. No one sees you. The next morning, your team lead is dead. No wounds. No sign of a fight, just like the others. But now the priests act differently. Not scared. Not surprised. Prepared. They gather stones from the unused pile. Fresh ones. Unmarked. Not for building. For sealing, which means they're going to close the tomb. Permanently. And they need workers who won't ask why. They don't call it a sealing. Not officially. To the workers, it's just final placement, standard end-of-build ritual stuff. But everyone feels it. The tension. The quiet. The way the overseers bark orders faster. The way the priests flinch at shadows. You're assigned to the sealing team. Not because you're the best hauler. Because you're obedient. The tomb door is different now. You remember how it looked when you first entered, gold-leafed, clean. Now it's covered in soot, ash, scratched symbols that weren't there before. The kind that look more drawn in desperation than ceremony. Your job is to haul the blocks into place. 3 layers of limestone. Thick enough that, once sealed, no light, sound, or spirit could ever pass through. They don't tell you what's inside. You already know. The first block groans as it's dragged across the threshold. You wince at the noise. It's not loud, but it lingers like a sound that doesn't want to end. The second block is harder. The ramp up to the chamber is too steep. The mud slick from overwatering. A man slips. Breaks his arm. He screams. No one stops. The priests glance, murmur a verse, and keep chanting. You take his place. The rope is rougher now, as if it's been soaked in blood and left to dry. You pull. The third block is the final one. Massive. It'll cap the whole thing. No one will get in or out once it's in place. You're halfway there when the chanting stops. Not gradually, just off. The priests freeze. Everyone does. And from behind the second block, from the tune's dark, unfinished mouth, you hear something. Not words. Breathing. Impossible. The chamber is sealed from the inside. There's no airflow. No torchlight. Nothing alive. But something is breathing. Short. Fast. Like a beast learning how to use lungs again. You drop the rope. Everyone does. Even the guards. The head priest yells something too fast, too panicked. Another priest starts crying. The guards draw blades. Then slam. The second block shifts. Not from outside, from inside. Only a few inches. But you see it. A hairline crack at the edge. Just enough for black air to hiss out. Just enough to make every torch in the corridor flicker backward. You're ordered to push. Not pull. Push. Everyone presses against the final block, shoving it toward the crack, sealing the pressure. You hear the stone grind. You hear someone chanting again, but it's not a priest. It's coming from inside. You push harder. The final block drops into place. The breathing stops. The corridor goes quiet. The head priest kneels, places his forehead to the stone, whispers, then turns to you. Forget this. And with that, you're dismissed. No ceremony, no thanks, no bonus, just silence. You return to your barracks. No one speaks. That night, no one sleeps. You can feel it in the air, in your bones. It's sealed, but it's not gone. And as you lie in the dark, eyes wide, heartbeat loud, you realize the pyramid may be finished, but the nightmare? It's just beginning. After the sealing, things don't go back to normal. They tilt sideways into something worse. The work continues technically. You still haul stone, mix mortar, cook under the sun. But now the energy's different. Edges are sharper. Conversations shorter. People walk faster, but look behind them more. The pyramid is finished, but no one celebrates. There is no feast, no parade, no reward. Just silence, and a growing sense that something went wrong. The priests vanish first, not all at once. A few leave at night under guard escort. A few are found in their chambers, lifeless, mouths open like they'd tried to scream. The rest just stop appearing altogether. The chants in the morning grow quiet. No one takes their place. Then the guards begin to slip away. Reassigned, you're told. New duties along the Nile. But their barracks sit empty, and no one ever sees them leave. Soon it's just you and the workers. Fewer every day. Food. Rations shrink. Beer jugs dry up. Tools go missing and are never replaced. You stop asking for replacements. You make do with cracked mallets and frayed rope. The scribes are still here, but they've changed too. No more wax tablets. No more counting stones. They write only on papyrus now. Long scrolls, sealed with black resin and handed off to messengers who ride off without speaking. You catch a glimpse of one scroll before it's rolled shut. Just a single glyph repeated again and again. Containment. One afternoon, you spot a caravan pulling up. Not workers. Men in black linen, heads covered, carrying tall staffs carved with symbols you've never seen. They don't speak to you. They walk straight into the pyramid, through a new entrance cut into the side. It wasn't there before. When they emerge, hours later, one of them is limping. Another's carrying a sack that drips. You look away. The next day, a fire breaks out near the base. Controlled, you're told. Ritualistic. But it jumps to the outer storage tents. Urns the food cache, the beer barrels, the linen stores. No one tries to put it out. No one even runs. You stand there, watching it all burn. You hear someone say, "Good, let it go." And you realize no one plans to stay. That night, the wind changes. It howls across the desert with a pitch you've never heard before, high and shrill, like a scream buried under sand. Someone claims they saw a figure standing on the pyramid's summit at dawn. Not moving, not a guard, just standing. You climb the scaffolding to see for yourself. But when you reach the top, there's nothing. Only stone. Still. Heavy. Final. You stare out at the horizon. Flat desert in every direction. The Nile, a black ribbon in the distance. The work is over, but you're still here. And the pyramid behind you feels awake. You think about walking away. Into the dunes. Toward the river. Maybe you'd make it. Maybe the gods would forgive you. Maybe there's still a world beyond this cursed monument. But when you turn to descend, the ramp is gone. You blink. It's there again. You descend slowly, carefully, because the line between real and nightmare is starting to blur. And somewhere inside, you swear you hear that breath again. Only now, it's faster. You don't remember the last time someone smiled. Not a real one, anyway. The pyramid now casts a longer shadow than it should. Even at noon, when the sun is overhead, the air around it feels darker, colder, like it's pulling light inward, feeding. Only a few workers remain. Not enough to haul stone. Just enough to watch the scaffolding rot. To walk the base like ghosts, pretending they're still alive. You pass them in silence. No one asks questions anymore. No one dares. The scribes are gone. The guards are gone. The priests? No one even says the word. The new men, the ones in black, still come and go. Always at night. Never speaking. Once, you see them dragging something from the upper tiers. It leaves a trail behind it. Wet. Red. You pretend it's paint. You hear things in your sleep now. Whispers in a language you don't know, but somehow understand. You dream of the pyramid breathing, each block flexing like ribs. The stone alive, hungry. You stop sleeping. Some of the others do, too. They gather at night, whisper to each other. Faces pale, eyes red. They talk about going inside, about finishing it. You tell them it's sealed. They say it opened itself. You leave. The next morning, they're gone. You don't ask where, because the truth is, you already know. You consider leaving, walking until your legs give out. But something roots you here. Guilt, maybe. Curiosity. The feeling that if you walk away, it'll follow. The pyramid watches. One morning, the last cart arrives. No oxen. No driver. Just a slab of black stone inside. Polished. Cold. Not from this quarry. Not from this world. It slid into the eastern alcove without ceremony. No one helps. No one ordered it. But it fits. Perfectly. As if it was always supposed to be there. You run your hand across it. It hums. That night, the wind stops. No breeze. No movement. Just silence. The kind that fills your ears with the sound of your own pulse. And then you hear it. A voice, not in the air, in the stone. It says one word, your name. You don't run. You don't cry. You walk back to the pyramid, step by step. You don't remember entering, but you know you're inside. No light, no breath. Just a narrow corridor that closes behind you with a sound like a sigh. You keep walking, because now you understand. The pyramid wasn't built for the dead. It was built to become something. And you? You were always part of the plan. It starts with the smell. You've grown used to the stench of sweat, rot, and stagnant beer. But this is something else entirely. It seeps up from the sand near the base of the pyramid, drifting in slow, lazy waves that cling to your clothes and refuse to leave your nostrils. At first, it's just faint, a sour, metallic hint in the air. You think maybe it's a rotting animal. Happens often. A goat wanders too close to the scaffold, slips, and dies in the heat. But then the wind shifts and suddenly everyone's gagging. Even the guards. The smell doesn't fade. It intensifies. Thick, wet, like meat left to ferment in the sun for weeks, mixed with old blood and something chemical. Someone finds a vent. A small opening in the ground, half hidden beneath collapsed scaffolding and loose rubble. About the size of a plate. It's breathing. Not fast, not steady, but pulsing, like something alive is exhaling from below. You report it to a scribe. He doesn't take notes, doesn't even look at it. He just says, "Don't go near it." So of course, people do. 3 workers from the southern team get curious. They widen the opening, try to peer inside. One lowers a rope with a torch tied at the end. They don't even get a few feet down before something goes wrong. The flame dies. The rope jerks. One man screams. They haul him back up fast, but his hands are shredded. Rope burns deep enough to show bone. He can't speak, just keeps shaking and clutching his face like he saw something he wasn't meant to. By sunset, the priests have arrived. They surround the hole, chant, pour oil into it, set it ablaze. The flame roars up so high, it catches the robe of one of the priests. He doesn't even flinch, just keeps chanting as the fire licks his sleeves. The next day, the vent is sealed, not with stone, with bodies. 3 wrapped bundles lowered into it. No explanation, no ceremony, just dumped in. Then mud, then limestone, then silence. But the smell stays. Even weeks later, it still lingers, especially at night. And if you wake up gasping for air, clutching your throat like it's full of smoke, you'll wonder if the hole ever really closed. And just when you start to forget about it, the sky itself decides to remind you that even the heavens are watching. It's just after midday when the sunlight disappears. Not dims, disappears. 1 second you're squinting against the usual blazing sun, dragging your stone like always, the heat crawling into your eyes. The next, the world drops into a gray, dreamless gloom. The sky doesn't go orange or red, it goes black. Like someone threw a lid over the desert. You freeze. Everyone does. Even the overseers. Tools drop. Ropes slacken. No one breathes. Because this isn't a cloud. It's not a sandstorm. The air is too still. The heat is too heavy. And the darkness feels thick, like the sun has been smothered. You look up. There's a shape blocking the sun. Not round, not clean. Like a smear across the sky. A crooked, uneven silhouette with hard edges and jagged arms. It hangs there silent, motionless, unnatural. You've seen eclipses before. They don't look like this. The priests react first. They rush into the open, faces pale under their painted eyes, falling to their knees in the sand. One tears his linen headdress off and presses his face to the ground. The others begin to chant, low, panicked, not in the usual language. Something older, something wrong. You see a scribe scribbling symbols into wet clay over and over, repeating the same shape, a spiral inside a triangle, surrounded by teeth. The air gets heavier. You feel it in your ears, like pressure dropping, like a storm about to crack open. Then, just as suddenly as it came, light returns. Not slowly, not gradually. In one blink it's back. Full force, no clouds, no wind, no explanation. The sky is blue again. The sun is blinding. But no one moves. You don't either. Because something's changed. And everyone feels it. That night, no one lights torches. Even the guards stay in the shadows. The wind doesn't blow. The stars seem dimmer. Farther, the priests declare it a divine warning. You're assigned double shifts the next day. Apparently, the pharaoh demands progress. But no one mentions the strange black shape. No one talks about what it looked like. Not a shadow, not a cloud, but a silhouette of something waiting just behind the sky. And you know whatever blocked. The sun has been watching all along. You used to joke about the food, about how the onions had more flies than layers, or how the bread could double as a building material. But now, you're not laughing, because the food is moving. At first, it's little things. A slight twitch from a bowl of barley. A jug of beer that bubbles, even though it's flat. You convince yourself it's just heat, fermentation. Maybe your eyes are tired. But then someone finds a loaf of bread pulsing, rising and falling like it's breathing. He drops it, backs away. A priest takes it, doesn't blink, says it's a sign of energy. No one eats that loaf. But the next day, all the bread pulses. The onions start changing too. They come out of the ground already blackened, skin tough like leather. Some are hollow. Some are full of liquid that smells like wet copper and meat. The farmers stop asking questions. The beer thickens. It's always been chunky, but now it resists the cup. It clings to the inside of the jar. One man drops his cup and swears he saw the liquid slither back into the jug. No one refills from that barrel again. But here's the problem. It's still your only food, so you eat it. You chew the writhing bread. You drink the sluggish beer. And you pray you're just tired. But soon the dreams start. You see shapes. In the dark, curved spines, rows of limbs, eyes with no face. You wake up with a mouth full of dirt. Or worse, sand. One man wakes screaming, hands clawing at his stomach. Says something moved inside him while he slept. He's gone the next day. The priests say the food is blessed, full of divine life. But you know it's not a blessing. It's seeding. Some of the workers stop eating altogether. They collapse within days. Some keep eating, and their eyes change. They go cloudy, milky, like they're not fully here anymore. They work faster. They don't sweat. They don't bleed. You keep eating, too, because you have no choice. But every bite tastes more like the pyramid than it does food. Dry, cold, and somehow alive. And just when you think it can't get worse, you hear someone whisper, "The food's not feeding us. We're feeding it." You remember Overseer Tarek. Everyone does. He was the one with the voice like a temple bell and arms like tree trunks. Harsh, but fair at least by pyramid standards. If you kept your rope tight and your head down, he mostly left you alone. Then he changed. It started small. He stopped shouting, stopped eating, began staring at the ramp stones for hours, tracing their joints with his fingers. He started sleeping outside, closer to the pyramid. Said it spoke better in the night air. At first, you thought it was stress. Everyone breaks eventually. But then he stopped reporting to the priests. He stopped writing on the stone logs. He stopped blinking. And then one day, he showed up with a plan. Said he'd discovered a shortcut. A new way to channel the worksite's energy directly into the foundation. Said it would reduce labor, speed up construction, and please the gods. Everyone nodded. Of course they did. Who were they to challenge an overseer? He gathered 10 men, brought extra oil, tools, food. Said they'd dig under the pyramid's belly and come out beneath the king's tomb itself. That was the last time you saw him. Days passed, then weeks. No sounds from the pit, no smoke, no requests for supplies, just silence. Finally, the priests sent someone in. Only one returned, shaking, covered in black mud and dried blood. Wouldn't speak, wouldn't eat. He drew something in the dirt, a shape. At first you thought it was a badly drawn pyramid, but no, it was inverted. An upside-down monument, spiraling down beneath the earth. And at the bottom, eyes, dozens of them, maybe more. He was taken by the guards before he could explain. Later that night, the earth trembled, only for a moment. But it wasn't from stonework. You felt it like something shifting beneath the pyramid's spine. The next day, a new team was assigned to seal the overseer's pit. You volunteered to carry supplies, part curiosity, part stupidity. But when you got there wasn't a pit anymore. Just smooth sand, perfectly flat, no tools, no rope, no sign of digging, as if the earth had never been touched. Someone whispers, "It took the whole thing back." The priests never speak of Tarek again. But late at night, when the wind is quiet and the torches burn low, you hear something behind the foundation walls. Something heavy, scratching, digging its way up. It's called Sedek Camp, named after some long-forgotten river official. Just a small outpost, really. About 30 workers, a few guards, 2 scribes, and a priest too young to grow a proper beard. Their job was simple: prep bricks, shape foundation stones, pass them along the supply chain. You'd been there once. Quiet place, too quiet. Then, one day, the reports stop. No brick counts. No supply updates. No messenger boys racing back with dusty tablets tied to their belts. Nothing. At first, the scribes call it a delay, then a logistical misstep. But after a week of silence, they send a scouting group. You're in it, not because you volunteered, because you're still on the watch list. You and 5 others are handed torches, blades, and 2 jars of beer. The priest escorting you barely says 10 words, just walks. The desert stretch to Sedek Camp takes half a day. And when you arrive, it's like stepping into a dream that's forgotten how to end. The entire camp is still standing, tents upright, fires long since cold, but logs still stacked neatly beside them, red loaves hardened mid-bake, tools lying in sand untouched, but no people, not a single one, no bodies, no blood, no signs of struggle, just gone. You find a scribe's tablet half buried by wind. The last entry reads, "It opened again. The sky was wrong. The sound came from below." That's all. Inside the main tent, you find one more thing. Handprints. Everywhere. On the walls, the table, the floor. Smudged, frantic, like dozens. Of people had all tried to claw their way out of something invisible. But the entrance flap was wide open. You don't sleep that night. The priest burns incense. Not as a blessing, but as a barrier. When you return, no one meets your eye. Sedek Camp is declared ritually contaminated. No one goes back. They say it's cursed, that the earth there opened and swallowed them whole. You say nothing. But sometimes, when you're working alone near the edge of the quarry, you hear footsteps behind you. Soft, bare, too light to belong to anyone alive. And sometimes, you catch a glimpse of sand, shifting in shapes that look an awful lot like handprints. It begins like any other illness. A few workers complaining of fatigue, dry mouth, dizziness. You assume it's heat stroke or bad beer, nothing unusual. But then they stop complaining. Not because they recover, because they stop talking. The first to change is a man named Heba. He's strong, reliable, known for lifting blocks without needing a team. One morning, he shows up late, drenched in sweat, eyes glassy. The overseer yells. Heba doesn't respond. He just keeps walking, right past his rope team, toward the pyramid barefoot, shirtless, no tools. He kneels at the base and begins rubbing his palms across the stone. Over and over. Slow, hypnotic. When they try to pull him away, he attacks. Not with fists with teeth. 3 guards subdue him. 1 doesn't get back up. The priests arrive. They don't tend to him. They don't ask questions. They drag Heba away. The next day, 5 more show symptoms. Their skin burns red, but not from the sun. They speak in broken phrases, repeat strange words, some not from any tongue you've heard before. 1 chants a number, over and over. 666. You laugh at first. Then you realize he's counting people. Everyone who goes missing gets added to the number. You get moved to another team, but the sickness follows. A man from your new group collapses during a pull. His blood is black, not dried. Just wrong. The priest overseeing the block doesn't react. He pulls out a wax seal, marks the man's forehead, and says, "He was too open." Open to what? They won't say. The worst part is how fast it spreads. You hear of entire shifts quarantined. Workers confined to tents, their mouths sewn shut to stop them from whispering whatever it is they've learned. You ask how many are sick. No one gives you a number, but the bread lines grow shorter, and the chanting grows louder. Some call it fever. Some say it's madness. Some say it's the pharaoh's soul, moving through the camp, testing bodies for the perfect vessel. One night, you wake up covered in sweat. You claw at your arms. There's nothing on them, but you swear you can feel something crawling just under the skin. You try not to panic. But the next morning, the man who slept beside you is gone. His mat is still warm, and you can still smell the sickness on your own breath. You weren't supposed to find the tablets. The tent had collapsed weeks ago, just a pile of half-burned cloth and sun-bleached poles near the quarry's edge. The scribe said it was a lightning strike. You weren't so sure, but nobody questions. Divine weather. You're digging latrine trenches when your shovel hits something solid. Not rock, not bone, clay. You pull out 3 tablets, rough, unfinished, wrapped in linen, like someone tried to hide them. You wipe the dust off and start. Reading. They're written in the old form abbreviated glyphs, quick strokes, not formal messages. These are personal. The first tablet begins. If you find this, know that I tried to warn them. Your heart skips. It's signed by a scribe. Not one you recognize by name, but he mentions things, dates, locations that match up with real teams. Real camps. Real disappearances. He writes about things buried under the pyramid, about chambers not on the blueprints, about symbols no priest will explain. He talks about awakening. It shows up again and again, scratched deep into the clay like he needed it to be remembered. It is not dead. It dreams. They feed it our breath. You read faster. The second tablet lists names workers, priests, even guards, each marked with one of 3 glyphs. A sun, a scorpion, or an eye. You find your own team leader's name. He's marked with an eye. The third tablet is different. It's not a message. It's a map, rough, incomplete, but you recognize parts of the pyramid's interior layout. And then, corridors you've never seen. Arrows pointing to walls you thought were solid. One labeled simply, not a tomb. You hide the tablets under your bedding. You don't sleep that night. You stare at the ceiling of your tent, wondering what you've stumbled into. By morning, someone's gone through your things. The tablets are still there, but now they're warm, as if someone or something has been holding them. You carry them out to the dunes that evening, ready to bury them again. But your hand won't move, because some part of you needs to know what comes next. And that part is growing stronger. You always thought the pyramid was the point, the centerpiece, the divine machine, the tomb that touched the gods. But now, you know that was only the surface. Literally, the real structure lies beneath. It starts with a tremor one too deep to be from falling stone. The ramp shakes under your feet. Not violently, just enough to make the sand jump. Enough to make every worker stop and look at each other in shared silence. That night, the priests don't lead chants. They pack scrolls, ritual tools. A few of the oldest leave on foot. No horses, no caravans. Just leave. You hear rumors of a foundation collapse. Not the pyramid under it. So deep that no one even knew there were chambers that far down. Except someone did. Because when you're assigned to move debris from the southern pit wall, you stumble into an opening that shouldn't exist. A crack, wide enough to crawl through, lined with smooth black stone, unlike anything else on the site. You and another worker slide in, just to look. You tell yourselves it's curiosity. You emerge hours later, shaking, covered in powdery white dust, mouths dry, eyes wide. You saw runes. Dozens of them, perfectly cut. No torch sit on the ceilings. No tool marks on the walls. No glyphs. Just strange symbols etched into the floor circles, spirals, jagged teeth. Your partner tries to draw one later, but his hands won't stop shaking. You go back again the next night, alone. This time, you bring one of the scribe's stolen tablets. The floor symbols match perfectly. This structure, this thing, it's not part of the pyramid. It's older, maybe buried before construction even began. You try to tell the overseer. He sends you away with a bruised rib. A week later, the area is sealed with new blocks. The guards don't explain. But you see the tools, they're using obsidian picks, not copper. And the mortar? Mixed with ashes. The workers who laid the new blocks don't return to the barracks. They're moved to a separate tent. One that's guarded day and night. One disappears the next morning. You ask the priest what's under the pyramid. He doesn't answer. He just places his palm over your chest and says, "Pray that it never finishes waking." You don't sleep that night, because deep beneath your feet, something isn't just shifting. It's stretching, like a creature unfolding after a long hibernation. And the worst part? You're starting to understand its shape. It starts with stone, just another load, just another assignment. You're told to deliver casing blocks to the west side. You grab your rope. You fall in line. But when you get there, something's wrong. The path's been narrowed. The ramp is gone. The scaffolding dismantled. In its place, a row of standing stones perfectly aligned, just wide enough for a single person to walk between them. At the end of the row, an opening. You've never seen it before, and you've worked every tier. It's not new. The stone around it is old, weathered, darker than the rest of the pyramid. Like it's been waiting. The priest stands beside it. Doesn't speak. Just nods. You step forward. You don't know why. Inside, it's colder than it should be. The air is thick like syrup in your throat. The torch barely burns. You take 10 steps and realize you're not on a floor. You're walking down, and the walls? They're soft. Not like flesh. Not quite. But they bend slightly under pressure, like stone that remembers being alive. Then you hear it. A voice. Not behind you. Not in front. Inside. It whispers one word. Welcome. You drop the torch. Run. Stumble through the tunnel until you're out. The sun hits your eyes like a slap. You collapse in the dust, heaving, shivering. The priest is gone. The stones are gone. The entrance? Gone. You stand up and turn in a circle. It's like it never happened. But your hand? Covered in soot from a torch you no longer hold, and scratched across your palm 3 perfect lines. You return to the barracks. Nobody speaks to you. Nobody looks at you. Later that night, your name appears on a wall in the scribe's tent, not etched in clay, not inked on papyrus. Burned into the stone, you tried to scrub it off. You can't. You weren't supposed to finish the job. You were meant to stay. The pyramid wasn't a tomb. It was a mouth. And now that it's tasted you, it will never let you go.